Happy Valentine's Day! I could give a spiel all about the origins of Valentine's Day, but that would take research. So instead, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before I begin the video. The first being introducing myself. My name is Tara Mooknee, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cow. She couldn't be in the video today because she actually has Valentine's Day plans, but if you like and subscribe, she might appear in the next one. So before I get into talking about
Amatonormativity,
I just want to make a couple of disclaimers. Consider this video a conversation starter. Not that I'm the first to talk about this concept, oh no. But as in, I'm starting this conversation within our little community of subscriptions and whoever else stumbles across this video. And most importantly, I'd like to add that I will be talking about a community that I am not myself a member of. I have reached out to members of the IS and Amatonormativity communities for this video and have even got on board a very, very special guest. I am so excited. But yeah, I just want to make it clear that I've really made an effort to try and talk about this topic with the IS and Amatonormativity community in mind, knowing that I can't personally represent them. And please add to the conversation in the comments. I want to keep learning from you. This conversation is just getting started. And when better to start it than on Valentine's Day? A day completely dedicated to romantic love. Let's get into that. But before we do, I would like to give a moment to thank today's sponsor. I know. Hey, stop throwing tomatoes at me. This is a rental.
What?
I've got people to pay. So quick sponsor plug and then we'll get into the thick of it.
Je t'aime, mais de façon platonique. Le mariage est demandé. Je m'excuse auprès du français. Nous allons tous mourir. I think that covers all the most crucial points of the video. You're free to leave. But before you go, I'd like to recommend you Babbel. So as a New Year's resolution, I decided to finally start learning French because I've always loved the language, the culture, the people. During university, I went on a trip to Rennes for a theatre festival, and the students at the University of Rennes put on a play called Volvana about a magical Actually, maybe I'll save that story for another day. It's not safe for work. But anyways, I love French TV and movies, and I want to actually speak with French people. Because what's the point in me just sitting at home screaming French to Andrea from 10%? She can't hear me. She's stuck in the screen. I need to go to France and find her. Babbel has been super helpful because it covers scenarios that you would actually use in real life, like talking about what you do for work, where you live, what you study. And Babbel even teaches you colloquialisms. You get a greater sense of the culture by learning slang, so you sound like an actual person rather than a textbook. And I find that understanding what people say is the relatively easy part. The difficult part is speaking. Pronunciation, ce n'est pas bon. In the lessons, you also learn and get tested on pronunciation, which is nice because you can do it in the safety of your home without fear of being judged. Babbel's lessons are short, 10-minute interactive lessons. So the courses are super easy to slot into your schedule and they have realistic goals. And Babbel's award-winning technology has been scientifically proven to get you speaking in 3 weeks. Not to brag, but I was having conversations about peanuts and olives after about an hour, so if you want to start learning a language or brush up on your already established language skills, join Babbel today and use my link in the description to get 65% off your subscription. And if on the off chance it's not for you, don't sweat it because they have a 20-day money-back guarantee. C'est bon. Thank you, Babbel, for sponsoring this video and bringing me one step closer to wooing Andrea. In the Symposium, Plato had Aristophanes recount the origins of humanity. Apparently, human's original form was a four-legged, four-armed, double-sexed entity. But Zeus, who thought humans might threaten the power of the gods, had them sliced in half. To add insult to injury, with their heads turned towards the wound so that each person would see that he'd been cut and keep order better. This, Aristophanes explains, is where the universal aching for a soulmate comes from. Now, since their natural form had been cut in two, each one longed for its own other half. And so they would grow their arms about each other, weaving themselves together, wanting to grow together. Well, isn't that nice? Now, interestingly, this myth is surprisingly free of heterosexism. These pairings could have been two men, two women, or a man and a woman. You could say, yay, this story isn't heteronormative, but it is amatonormative. Ooh. Amatonormativity was coined by philosophy professor Elizabeth Brake. It is a play on heteronormativity, using amatus, which is Latin for beloved. It describes the social and legal structures that assume long-term, monogamous, romantic relationships are the be-all and end-all, and that everyone should aspire to such a relationship. They are the ultimate kind of love, the prize turkey, the beauty pageant queen, Miss Universe. Fuck Miss World or Miss whatever country she's from. It's the top tier, or at least believed to be. Everyone is affected by amatonormativity, regardless of whether they're straight or LGBTQ+, but it discriminates against asexual, aromantic, and polyamorous people. The active stigma against unconventional relationships surfaces in a myriad of ways: being casually treated with suspicion, housing and child custody discrimination, alienation from family and community, and much more. Or having to explain your relationships more than other people. Even though polyamory involves sexual and romantic relationships, it can still be marginalized by the widespread assumption that romantic sexual love is inherently monogamous. In this video, I'll be focusing more on single people and aromantic people, because this topic is so vast that I had to narrow it down somehow. Polyamorous people, I see you. Please share your perspectives, because you're fundamental to this discussion. Maybe we could do a part 2 with an awesome polyamorous creator. So, what is love? You know how when we talk about love, it's often synonymous with romantic love? Like when you say, this is a love story, or this is a love song. In her book, What Love Is and What It Could Be, Carrie Jenkins says, often in songs and everywhere else, people say love when they mean romantic love. That's a convenient shorthand, but notice how it also suggests romantic love is accorded a special place in our thinking. And even though we consciously know this, like we know that we love our mothers as much as our romantic partners, romantic love is still seen as the default. Romantic love is a kind of love. Its distinctive social role is what makes it romantic, not what makes it love. And having the romance isn't enough, it's the exclusivity of it. Think Two Become One by the Spice Girls, or phrases like my better half, or my other half, and you complete me, and she's the one. There's this notion that in order to grow up, one must get their romantic life in order and settle down. Naturally, amatonormativity can be brutal for women, like a lot of things. Think the lonely spinster trope. She's forever alone with her cat, rights. With regards to men, there seems to be two extremes. Either he's living up the bachelor life, or he's an immature slob who needs to find a lady to whip him into shape. He can't just be chillin'. One might confuse amatonormativity with heteronormativity, but Elizabeth Brake highlights that amatonormativity has no regard for gender or sexual identity. Speaking of Elizabeth Brake, she is the Michelangelo to the Sistine Chapel, the James Cameron to Titanic, the Stephanie Meyer to Twilight, the Elizabeth Brake to amatonormativity. In her book, Minimizing Marriage, Morality, and the Law, Brake explores how, even in secular contexts, marriage has sacramental connotations. There are three salient secular elements of marriage that may carry special moral significance: the contractual exchange of rights and responsibilities in legal marriage, social recognition of the marital relationship, and the ideal relationship type associated with marriage. For example, a loving, trusting, and caring relationship. She argues that privileging marriage reinforces amatonormative discrimination, i.e., discrimination against non-amorous or non-exclusive relationships, such as friendships or polyamorous pairs or groups. I would argue that privileging married couples also hurts unmarried yet otherwise traditional couples. A couple can be committed to one another for decades and people will still ask, why aren't they married? And don't get me wrong, I realise that a lot of the time when people are asking this, they're asking it out of concern, like, why aren't you married? It's much less paperwork. But there's also the implication that being unmarried means being less committed, even if a couple have children together, which is interesting. There's that classic line where people who don't want to get married say something along the lines of, I don't need a piece of paper to prove my love to you, which I agree with. A legal contract does not mean more intense or committed love. Marriage does not equal love. Marriage can be arranged for green cards or LARPing as someone's spouse when you're actually an undercover cop. But on the flip side, when couples who otherwise wouldn't get married do get married, I don't blame them. Marriage has significant legal ramifications. It entitles spouses to benefits. It constructs and projects spousal privacy. It limits exit options, and in some jurisdictions, it brings exemptions from sexual battery charges. Its legal effects can be life-saving or fatal. Entitlement to health insurance, or legal access rights for an abusive spouse. It carries a rich symbolism of adulthood, full citizenship, and moral respectability. Whenever I think of marriage, I'm always haunted by the idea of, would my partner be taken care of if I died? When I die. We're all gonna die. When my uncle passed away, my aunt, whom he had been with for decades, as long as I've been alive, wasn't allowed to pick up his ashes because they were unmarried. At that moment, it hit me that although being married might seem like a mere bureaucratic difference when you're alive, it can make all the difference in those make or break moments, which is fucked. And because of stuff like this, a lot of couples get married when they wouldn't otherwise. It's the expected thing to do. Ooh, that reminds me, have you heard of the relationship escalator? The default set of societal expectations for intimate relationships. Partners follow a progressive set of steps, each with visible markers towards a clear goal. The goal at the top of the escalator is to achieve a permanently monogamous, sexually and romantically exclusive between two people, cohabiting marriage, legally sanctioned if possible. Partners are expected to remain together at the top of the escalator until death. In layman's terms, the relationship escalator is what we're conditioned to believe about relationships. What intimate relationships should look like, how they are supposed to work, and indeed what any emotionally healthy adult should want. I did just talk about how married couples are valued over unmarried couples. That being said, even if we take marriage out of the equation, you are still seen as better off in a long-term, monogamous, romantic partnership. You still experience the pressures imposed by amatonormativity. The pressure to settle down and commit to the one person. The pressure to settle for someone who isn't right or stay in the wrong relationship because it's better than being alone. And you still experience toxic messages about romance. Romance is exclusive, jealous, restrictive, and controlling. It means ownership. And with the assumption of ownership comes a whole host of issues. In the worst cases, it can be life-threatening. Like how in the UK, if you cohabit or marry a partner, it is assumed that you are dependent on them, that you rely on them financially, even though you are your own person. You're separate people. So, you're no longer eligible for certain disability benefits. According to Safe Lives, a domestic abuse organization, disabled people typically experience abuse for an average of 3.3 years before seeking support, compared to the 2.3 years for non-disabled people. After receiving support, disabled victims are 8% more likely to continue to experience abuse. Perhaps we should change how we view relationships in our legal models. Perhaps we should move away from seeing romantic partners as extensions of one another. And even if we just look at it on an emotional level, take all the practical stuff out of it. It's kind of odd how we get messaging that says stuff like, your partner should be your best friend as well as your lover, and how they're expected to be your everything and the most important person in your life. That's way too much pressure to put on one person, and it diminishes friendships. I talked about this in another video where I discussed the media trope where men and women can't be friends. But basically, the idea that friendship is a relationship that is a level beneath a romantic relationship is a myth. I agree that a romantic partner can be a best friend and a lover simultaneously, and therefore that relationship feels richer than your other relationships, and it might be for certain people. But that doesn't mean that across the board, friendship is less valuable than a romantic relationship. Have you ever been through a friendship breakup? Because, oh boy, I wish we treated friendship breakups like regular breakups, because they can be fucking brutal. So yeah, friendships can be just as or even more valuable than romantic partnerships. Which is why it is foolish to assume that if someone is single, it means they're lonely. The gloves are coming off. The assumption that single equals lonely is so ingrained that this bias has even colored the data surrounding single people. Bella DePaulo has talked about this at great length and calls the stereotyping and discrimination against single people singlism. Back in the early 2000s, DePaulo took a one-year fellowship at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Around that time, she started to write what would become her 2006 book, Singled Out: How Singles Are Stereotyped, Stigmatized, and Ignored, and Still Live Happily Ever After. DePaulo's research on this topic is absolutely fascinating, and I was genuinely shocked with some of the findings. Her first step was to review the existing literature on marriage and well-being. I just assumed that all these claims I had seen so often, get married, you'll be happier, healthier, I just assumed that they were all true. She wasn't looking to fuck shit up. Maybe it's not true for older single women, or maybe it's not true for a certain ethnicity. I was just looking for something like that. She started to see an error in categorization, specifically how married people versus single people were classified. Divorce tends to make people less happy, so if you exclude divorcees from your population of married people, that could artificially inflate their reported happiness and well-being. Some studies even lumped in divorced people with single people, artificially deflating this group's happiness. I kept thinking, maybe that's unrepresentative. But then it turned out that this was a widespread issue on research surrounding marriage and well-being. And then there's the issue of how these studies are presented. For example, in 2008, the Washington Post ran a study with the headline, "Married Folks Still the Healthiest." Now, what were the findings? 92.9% of currently married people rated their health as good or excellent, as compared to 92.6% of lifelong single people. That's 0.3 percentage points. It's hurting single people because they're led to believe that there's something wrong with them, something wrong with their lives, even if they recognize at some level that they want to be single. And it also hurts married people and people who want to be coupled, because if they're in a bad relationship, they think, if I become single, maybe I'm going to be even more unhappy. As well as reinforcing negative stereotypes, there are unsurprisingly legal ramifications to being single. And the big one is housing. Buying and even renting housing is much trickier as a singleton, which further encourages people to stay in the wrong relationship in order to live somewhere.
The government are obsessed with my love life. Unlike my own indifferent mother, they are acting like impatient Love Island viewers, asking me to couple up immediately or risk being stuck as a precarious renter. They'd have me swiping right on a selection of Ted Bundys if it could just get me onto the property ladder.
Or to live with friends, but then they're stereotyped as needing to grow up. Living alone shouldn't be a luxury. I mean, housing shouldn't be a luxury, but that's a whole topic for a different day.
Let's not forget the terrifying spectre of co-living that was sold as some kind of groovy, Googleized commune for those at a stage of life where they have yet to accumulate significant possessions and have a shorter-term outlook with regard to choice of tenure. In other words, please Marie Kondo yourself out of existence if you are child-free.
It's totally cool if you're into that. I respect it. But if you're neurodivergent or just an introvert, nope, no thank you.
It's as if the government doesn't believe that people can actually be single in the long term, that we're all perpetually waiting for our own Prince or Princess Charming. They haven't factored us into the housing market at all. To be single shouldn't be seen as some non-conformist statement. Owning a home as a single person shouldn't be some freakish anomaly. How long will it take the government to understand that some of us single people don't want to be a real housewife before we can make a home?
As well as housing, something else popped in my head when researching this video, and that was kids. Children, infants, youths, little tykes, the stigma around single parenthood, and the discussions around intentional single parenthood. For example, if someone without a partner gets IVF or adopts alone. Now, on the one hand, I don't want to underplay how difficult it is to be a single parent. I imagine it's incredibly difficult. On the other hand, I don't think it's fair to say to someone that you're selfish for having a kid alone. Because A, if you are happily single and you plan to be a single parent, I imagine that's a bit easier than being a single parent due to unforeseen circumstances like bereavement or your partner leaving you. B, why do people assume that because you are single, there wouldn't be friends and other family members in the picture? C, it is very possible, and people do this, where they raise a kid not with an amorous partner. Co-parenting with a friend is a thing. The nuclear family is overrated. That's my hot take. And of course, there's the stigma around having kids if you're polyamorous. I'm not an expert on the topic, so I would really like to hear thoughts from the audience for this one, specifically my polyamorous viewers. But when people say, it's bad for the kids because they'll get bullied, I always just think, isn't the issue that polyamory is stigmatized? Like, if it wasn't a taboo and the kids weren't bullied for it, then it probably wouldn't be an issue, right? Like, if that's what they were raised with and that's what they knew. But as I said,
I'm not an expert, I'm not a child psychologist, so that's just me thinking aloud. I'm not an expert on anything, so don't listen to me. Stop watching this. Stop it. Actually, maybe watch this next bit. Look what I painted. Yes, I know the shades of green aren't accurate to the aromantic flag, but I ran out of white paint, so sue me. Let's take a moment to applaud some ace icons. Apparently SpongeBob is asexual. Did not know that. Todd from BoJack Horseman, Jughead in Archie Comics, which was erased in the TV adaptation because they wanted to be able to sexualize him. And sexualizing teenagers is kind of Riverdale's speciality. One of the many, many crimes of Roberto Aguirre Sacasa. Now, it's not a competition, but after all this reading and research, it seems to me, at least, that amatonormativity hurts asexual and aromantic people to a level that is just off the charts. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I am not a member of the ace aro community, so I don't know firsthand how amatonormativity affects members of said community. But to reference another Beatles song, I get by with a little help from my friends. My telephone, my telephone, my telephone.
Oh, so that's what I'm doing wrong.
Take me to your Xbox to play Fortnite today.
Hello?
Hey, David J. Bradley from the YouTube channel David J. Bradley.
Like and subscribe?
Like and subscribe.
Hey Tara, what's up?
Remember when we said that we were doing that collaboration on amatonormativity?
Oh, yeah, I totally remembered that that's what I was meant to be doing. Yeah.
Well, it's time for your bit.
What? Right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, when the cow who writes and produces all of Tara's videos asked me to contribute something to a discussion on amatonormativity, we discussed it a little and decided that one of the best ways to really explore a concept like this is to give a clear example of it via a piece of media. It just helps to give a fairly abstract idea some actual concrete emotions that you can connect to it, you know? So, I'm just going to rant to you about why Little Women 2019 is really good for a bit. You can't stop it. This is what's happening. For those who don't know me, I am aromantic and asexual. Also non-binary, which isn't really relevant here, but does mean I look good in a skirt. As an aro-ace person, let me tell you that Greta Gerwig's 2019 film adaptation of Little Women is extremely aro-ace. I remember sitting in the cinema seeing it and just completely losing my shit because of how much I felt seen by it. And I want to help you see this side of the movie, so that you too can feel the crushing sadness brought on by the ways that an allonormative society fucking hates people like me. Just to clarify, this is a reading based entirely on the 2019 movie. I haven't read the book or seen any of the other adaptations of it, so if this doesn't match up to any of those versions... If you've never seen this movie, the quickest summary I can manage is the March family, 4 sisters, Jo, Meg, Amy and Beth, living their lives around the time of the American Civil War. We see them both in childhood and in adulthood, and it's very heartwarming and sad and good, and you should definitely watch it.
My Little Women.
And, in my eyes at least, the main character, Jo March, is an absolute aro-ace disaster. She's also extremely gender, but again, that's not relevant right now. Throughout every step of the movie, she continuously expresses distaste at the idea of being married. She doesn't want it for herself, and she hates the idea of it happening to her sisters. It genuinely just doesn't seem to be a thing that has occurred to her that she would ever want to do. The relationships that matter to her and that she holds dear are the ones that she has with her sisters, her parents, and her dear friend Laurie. She doesn't want to see any of that fall apart. But there's a constant pressure put onto people, women especially, that says they have to get married. It is what is expected. The pressures of marriage that society pours on are made abundantly clear throughout the film. We see it right from the very beginning when Jo is trying to sell a story to a publisher, and he gives her a specific bit of advice about any stories she might submit in the future.
And if the main character is a girl, make sure she's married by the end. Or dead, either way.
Excuse me?
In case they didn't make it obvious enough, this is him talking about how the story is expected to go for Jo and her sisters. By the end, they will have to be either married or dead. The attitude is then exemplified through the narrative by the ways that Aunt March talks to them about it. She is emphatic that the girls will have to get married, and preferably to someone with money. In fact, it's more the money than the husband that she is concerned about, but the two go hand in hand. Marriage is the only way that a woman can get money. She can't earn her own. Marriage is an economic proposition. Love would just be kind of a bonus. In fact, she is so absurd with applying this pressure that she literally tells 13-year-old Amy that she will have to get married to money to save her family.
You are your family's hope now. Beth is sick, Joe is a lost cause, and I hear Meg has had her head turned by a penniless tutor. So it'll be up to you to support them all, and your indigent parents in their old age. So you must marry well.
Bloody hell, Meryl. But getting married is not what Joe wants. She is a writer, and all she wants out of life is to pursue that. She is happy just living her life with her family, writing stories and plays for them to perform in. Falling in love and getting married is just not something she even thinks about. She doesn't want to do it.
I'd rather be a free spinster and paddle my own canoe. I would.
Marriage for Jo would be a trap. She wouldn't be able to pursue her dreams and she'd be miserable. But all she ever sees as a woman is that she has to get married. It is a danger hanging constantly over her head. Most clearly brought into focus with Meg's marriage. Before the wedding, Jo tries to talk Meg out of it. She tries to convince Meg to run away with her. They'll go and live as artists and support themselves. But Meg actually wants to get married. She is in love and wants to be with her new husband. Something that Jo genuinely cannot seem to conceive of. As if being in love with someone is a completely foreign concept to her.
I want to get married. Why? Because I love him.
She wants to have her sister with her, to be happy as a family, and this thing that she simply doesn't understand is tearing that apart. As she sees it, the pressure of getting married, because it is the expected thing to do, is taking her sister away from her. Even though Meg actually does want to get married for love, all Jo can see is the amatonormativity at play.
I can't believe childhood is over.
Things hit an even more tragic point for Jo after Meg's wedding. Laurie, or Teddy as Jo calls him, who has become her best friend over the course of the film, confesses his love to her. She is horrified at this, knowing that it means their friendship can never be what it was again. She doesn't want to hurt a friend, but she doesn't love him that way. She doesn't want to be married to him. We've seen this friendship blossom between the two from their first meeting, seen how close they've grown, and it all just comes crashing down in this moment. Because Laurie deeply loves Jo, and Jo can't love him back.
I don't see why I can't love you as you want me to. I don't know why.
You can't?
I can't change how I feel, and it would be a lie to say I do when I don't.
It isn't just that she doesn't love him romantically, it's that she literally can't. Looking at her relationship with Laurie on paper, it would seem to make absolute perfect sense for the two of them to fall in love, but she can't. Which is just a huge arrow ace mood. In a world that values romantic love over platonic or familial love, it can be hard to care for people when there's always the possibility that at any moment they might be taken away from you because of a love that society has deemed more important. This scene is the moment I realised this was an Arrow Ace movie. Because I have rarely felt so seen as when Jo says,
I can't. I've tried it and I failed.
Why does everyone expect it then? Why?
and seeing Laurie go from being this good-natured, soft, extremely Timothée Chalamet boy into the manipulative, petulant face of amatonormativity in an instant is almost too much to bear.
I can't love anyone else, Joe. I only love you. I would rather hang myself than realize this, Joe.
Teddy.
I would rather be dead. I think you will marry, Joe. I think you'll find someone and love them, and you will live and die for them because that's your way, and you will. And I'll watch.
So, Jo is left standing there, one sister married, one leaving for Europe 1 week from illness, with her best friendship ruined, and she is the one made to feel guilty, because she couldn't feel the way that she was expected to. This scene has broken me. I am broken. I no longer function correctly. Please switch me off at the wall and turn me back on again. Following on from this, Jo moves to New York to try and make it as a writer. She's alone, away from her family, and scraping by to make ends meet, but she is finding fulfillment through writing, reading, and attending the theatre.
Wow, she's literally me.
While there, she meets a professor guy, who offers her harsh criticism on her writing, which she doesn't take well. They have absolutely zero chemistry, and it's important to me that you remember that. She soon returns home to her family, because Beth's illness has grown worse. Coming home again, Jo is tired and depressed, doing her best to keep things together, taking Beth to the seaside to try and help her recover again. But given all she's going through, she can't bring herself to write anything. She's burnt out and running on empty for the sake of her family. Then Beth dies.
Spoilers for 1869.
And she feels more alone than ever. In the other scene that completely shatters my soul into pieces, Jo has a moment where she reconsiders Laurie's proposal, telling her mother that if he asked her again, she would say yes. This scene hits onto more Big Arrow moods with exchanges like this.
But do you love him? I care more to be loved. I want to be loved.
That is not the same as loving.
Jo is bereft because of how she doesn't fit with the world. She has seen that the only way for a woman to not be alone is to get married. She doesn't actually feel that way about Laurie, or about anyone even, but she doesn't want to be left with no one. No one to care for her, no one to love her, just because marriage doesn't make sense to her, as she puts it herself.
And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it, but I'm so lonely.
As an Arrow person, I can't help but relate to Jo's plight here. I don't feel attraction in that way, I simply can't. I don't think I'm any less of a person for that, but the world might see me that way, and only think it more the older I get. All through life, it's been drilled into people that being in a single, monogamous relationship is the only way to be fulfilled and happy. That this is what your life should be aimed towards. That other relationships, like with friends and family, just don't matter as much, and you can get pushed out of their lives if they find that relationship. It's difficult not to internalise that you're doing something wrong by not looking for that. Sometimes I feel as lonely as Jo March in this scene, and all because the world around me thinks that their idea of happiness is the one that should apply to everyone. Anyway, back to the movie. Jo is thankfully spared the mistake of marrying Laurie, because in the meantime he has married Amy. Amy also shows the distinct societal pressure to get married, with Aunt March forcing her down a very specific path to marry a man she chose for her to get his money. She is broken down and aware that she has little chance of ever getting ahead in life any other way. Marrying well is her only option, but she manages to break out of this at least a little by marrying Laurie, who she actually falls in love with. That he is also very rich is just a little convenient. Is it a bit weird that he married Amy after having been rejected by her sister? Maybe, but who can really blame him for marrying Florence Pugh? Then, as the film gets to the end, it comes up against a big problem of the work that it's adapting. At the end of the book, despite being so against marriage the whole way through the story, Jo ends up marrying the professor guy she has no chemistry with. How do you reconcile this ending with everything in the text that came before? Well, the movie figures out the perfect way to do it. Jo, following a demand from her publisher, writes it as a happy ending to her book, Little Women.
She says the whole book that she doesn't want to marry.
Who cares? Girls want to see women married, not consistent.
No.
We see an idealised, perfect ending within the book world, where the family run a school out of Aunt March's house, their money troubles over, intercut with the real end of this story. Jo's book being printed and her receiving the first copy. We see the happy ending that society expects of Jo, and the true happiness she makes herself laid side by side. She may be more alone this way, she may always be fighting to be recognised and struggling for money, but she has her independence, she has her art, and she is happy. Plus, she manages to talk herself up to a tidy percentage of the royalties.
Mr. Dashwood, if I'm going to sell my heroin into marriage for money, I might as well get some of it.
Little Women is a great movie that really digs into the difficulties of amatonormativity, especially in regards to how it affects women. The pressure to get married as the only way to be a happy and whole person is constant throughout, and Jo March bucks against it at every turn. Her happiness shouldn't have to lie in getting married to some guy she hardly knows out of nowhere. My perfect Arrow-ace disaster deserves to find contentment in herself, in her family, and in her art. In the end, Jo March doesn't need to be married to be happy. She just needs her book. Yeah, so something like that?
Yeah, I think that should do it.
Okay, cool. Then I will talk to you later. Give my love to Siggy and the cow.
Oh, and give mine to Frank. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye.
Every call she does this.
In all seriousness, how bloody good was that? Go subscribe to David, otherwise you're a loser. They also have an awesome video about an episode of the show House that perpetuates the myth that asexuality is a mental disorder. Doctors have confused asexual orientation with a low sex drive due to medical issues. When asexual people are treated as abnormal by doctors or therapists, it does them a huge disservice, to put it lightly. Similarly, with aromantic people, in my research, I kept coming across anecdotes from aromantic people describing how people around them would call them robots.
A lot of the times I feel like people paint aromantic people to be heartless, to be unempathetic, and to be like malignant villains because we don't experience the same lovey-dovey feelings that everyone else is experiencing, and that's not the case.
Cold or broken, all because they don't experience romantic attraction.
When I was in those romantic relationships, I got told a lot that I was like a nonchalant person, that I was super detached, that I was just like unable to connect. A partner once said to my face, like, you need to go get therapy. And I did. And it did not help. Because aromanticism is not something that you need to fix. You're not broken for being aromantic. It's just how you exist. It's how you experience connection, right? I feel like one of the more interesting things, as well as having a complex of being a person who was like super detached and cold-hearted or ice queen, which was like super hurtful because just because someone's aromantic doesn't mean that they don't have feelings.
Like I said at the beginning of the video, love is often seen as synonymous with romantic love. If someone doesn't love romantically, they can still experience love in so many ways. Do you love your mother? Actually, no, don't answer that. This is not a therapist's office. Yasmin Benoit is an asexual and aromantic activist, model, and all-round very cool person. So I wanted to close this off with some quotes from an article she wrote for Vogue last Valentine's Day. I know that as someone who is asexual and aromantic, I am a complete person and can live a perfectly fulfilling life. I've often been met with a sympathetic reaction. You must feel like you're missing out. I can't imagine being like that. It must be hard for your family. Do you worry that no one will want you? How do you handle being so lonely? You're so brave and strong. What will you do with your life now? Asexuality doesn't make you undesirable or unable to desire others. It is a unique experience of sexuality, not a deprivation from it. Being aromantic does not mean that you can't love or be loved, and it does not mean you are void of other emotions or capabilities. I am not lonely with my friends, family, co-workers, and supporters. And there it is. When you meet someone who is aromantic, be mindful of the assumptions that you make. If you meet someone who is polyamorous and the way they live seems completely alien to you and you think, gosh, I could never do that, that's fine, but there's no need to say it to them as if they're a pariah. Just don't be a dick, okay? Rejecting amatonormativity does not mean discouraging amorous relationships. It means ceasing to encourage them at the expense of other caring relationships. I know that I'm going to get comments saying, why are you shitting on monogamy? And let me stop you there. I'm not. I'm monogamous, and I'm a fan of monogamous relationships. And contrary to popular belief, I sometimes even enjoy monogamous relationships with men. We need to acknowledge the diversity of relationship styles and stop centering romantic love. Romantic love is wonderful, but it isn't for everyone. The first step to combating amatonormativity is to realize it's happening. Be sensitive to what other people want, especially if it doesn't match what you want. If your single friends are happy, rather than saying things like, oh, but you're such a catch, you'll get snapped up in no time, encourage them to stay single. Stop pitying single people. I'm going to let Alice Osman, who is an author, illustrator, screenwriter, and comic artist, who also happens to be asexual and aromantic, have the final word.
Feeling pressured to find the perfect love story is not a good thing for anyone, no matter your sexuality. So understanding that you shouldn't have to strive for that idealized life and you should just try and enjoy, you know, what you have is a good thing for everyone.
Whew, that was a longie, wasn't it? Note to self, don't use the word longie again.
Thank you so much for being with me on this journey. First of all, I just want to thank all the lovely subscriptions for suggesting Ace and Aero creators to check out for this video. They were immensely helpful in my research, and thank you to the many people who suggested David J. Bradley to collab with. I was thrilled when they said yes, and I cannot recommend their work enough, so please go check them out, go support them, go support Frank. Thank you, Gabby Bell, for your amazing bad recorder playing. You knew the assignment and you smashed it, so go check out her videos. She's very funny, she's great. Make sure to check out Babbel, because checking out my sponsors really helps the channel out. It helps me pay people to make these videos extra good, and so that I can do more collaborations in the future, because working with David was really just one of my favorite experiences so far on YouTube, so thank you for making that possible for me. Right, I think that's everything. I won't keep you any longer. You know, you've got things to do, you've got pets to pet. Speaking of pets, I am gonna let David lead this week's subscription pet shout out. Take it away.
So this is Frank, or Frankenstein for long. He's a 7-year-old grumpy man who does not like being picked up like this. Except he does really. I've had him for almost 4 years now, and he is a perfect, precious boy. Very much a fraidy cat. And absolutely gorgeous, look at him. It's the Frank, so